A recent article by BlackRock caught my attention. It's called To Spend or Not to Spend. And I think that's a big issue a lot of you bump up against as you enter into retirement. So I want to go through this article, the data, some supporting comments from me to help you walk through these issues that a lot of you are facing. And then I want to show you our software and give you some tips and tools so that you can walk through retirement and don't struggle with the things that we talk about in this article. To spend or not to spend. That is the article that BlackRock put together in December 2023. It's a great article. We will post that below. Make sure you take a full read through. Highly qualified authors here. But let's jump into the data here. So percentage of assets remaining after 17 to 18 years in retirement. So basically about 20 years into retirement, how much assets do you have left? And you can see on the very right side, there's a large percentage, over 30% of people in the lowest, medium, and highest wealth category still have more than 100% of their assets 20 years into retirement. To me, that's an issue, especially for the lower middle class. You're not spending the way you should be. Now, on the very left side, you can see that the lowest wealth people have also spent a lot of their money as well. They have less than 20% left. About the same amount, actually, of that lowest category have 20% left as have 100% or more left. Again, so you can see the average spending, about 20 to 50% left of assets, float around that 10 to 20% here, 50 to 80, 80 to 100. But what concerns me is that so many people, about a third of you watching this video statistically, have over 100% of your assets left after 20 years. Now, again, the pink category, the highest wealth, maybe not as concerning. You might have enough wealth that you can live off the interest and whatnot, but a lot of you in that lower middle class are not spending enough. So some of the key findings, and I want to go through these because they're really important and they affect every single one of you. The first one, retirees prefer to keep their assets untouched. So 1 in 4 people feel they will have to spend down their principal. And I'll tell you this, I would say 3 in 4, if not 3.5 to 3.9 out of 4 people will have to spend down the principal assets that they've built up. Many of you are looking to retire and live off the interest and the dividends and the capital gains and money that generates out of your investments. And the reality is the majority of you, the large majority of you, need to have the mindset that I am going to spend down the capital. The principal amount that you've invested needs to be spent down for the majority of you. You just don't have enough money. Inflation's going to catch up to you. You're not spending enough. You're going to get to the end of retirement with a lot of money. And that's what we're trying to avoid here. Number 2, retirees more often plan to spend consistently, increasing with age. And I find this is more common in the States than in Canada, but 43% plan to consistently spend throughout retirement. And I think that's a mistake because talk to anyone that's in their 70s or 80s right now, and they said, yeah, if I went back, I would have spent more. Maybe they did spend more earlier in retirement. Again, we call it the go-go phase of retirement. You have your go-go phase, typically retirement up to age 75. Then you have your slow-go stage, 75 to 85, and the no-go stage is 85 onward. Again, that slow-go stage, that middle ground, it's a time where you're going to still spend money, you can still travel and do stuff, but it does slow down. Statistically, age 71 to 73, your spending will start to slow down. So shouldn't your retirement plan, your cash flow plan kind of match that? So again, ideally you want to front end it, spend more earlier without driving up the tax rate, and I'll cover that here in our software in a minute, and then slow down, and then again, that slow go stage drops, no go stage drops even more. Now, a lot of you, and I know there's already comments below in this video, you said, Adam, I'm going to be in a long-term care home facility later, and I need money for that, which is absolutely true. I encourage you to do the research around the data of how many people actually go into the care facility, how much it costs, how they charge, and how long you'll be there. Do the research. If that's a fear of yours, I encourage you, do that research so that you can kind of get that fear off your chest and plan accordingly. For many of you, you own a home, you own an asset there. Hopefully you never touch that. That's kind of the buffer in the background. So if you do a laddered income where you spend more than, scale it down over time, and in your last little bit of life, you do have to go to a care facility. If you have a home, you can use that as kind of a buffer for, okay, if I need to go to a care home, it's going to be there for me to provide that need. Number 3, retirees retain their accumulation mindset. And I think, I've talked about this a lot, how retirement is 10% financial and 90% psychological. And that's so true here, in that so many of you, so for those goals, 50% want to grow assets. So a lot of you enter retirement still looking to grow your asset. Now, if this is you, you're normal. That's absolutely the norm that we see, especially you've spent 30, 40, maybe 50 years accumulating wealth. And then the flick of a switch, you're told to now go spend it. And it kind of ties back to the other one where people aren't spending their principal, right? The principal amount you've built up, no, I want to just live off the interest and dividends. I don't want to touch what I've worked hard to save up. And I get it. But you have to work towards shifting that mindset. And it really does come years leading up to retirement. You need to work on that mindset for 2, 3, maybe 5 years leading up to retirement of like, okay, the accumulation is slowing down and now it's decumulation. Again, I typically say it'll take 6 to 18 months to fully engage how that decumulation strategy is going to work for you. Again, even if you have a great plan, there's withholding tax differences and where do I get my money from and timing of withdrawals, and it's a change of pace. So be patient through that process. Don't get discouraged. Be patient through that process, but understand that the shift, the mind shift from accumulation to decumulation is a very tough one. You should struggle with it if you do your normal, and just keep working through it. Talk to those that have been in retirement for a little bit, have gone through that pain. Learn from them. The fourth finding here is that retirees with pension income least likely to spend down because they don't need it, which is obviously true. If you have a big defined benefit pension plan, chances you need to draw down your other money are slim to none. Now again, it's very important. I've talked about this a lot on the channel. If you have a defined benefit pension plan and you also have an RSP, you need to make sure that you're drawing down that RSP, and there's a better time and a worse time to do that. Again, a lot of you think if you have a bridge benefit, which means there's kind of an added piece to your pension plan from retirement to 65. At 65, a bridge benefit will drop off, and a lot of you think naturally I have to start CPP or OAS. I've seen a couple pensions where you are forced to, but typically 98% of the time, that's not true. You could 65, 70, draw down your RSP a bit more, then start your CPP. Again, there's a lot of tax strategy there. Don't forget that you need to draw down your RSP, draw down that RIF so that you don't get to later in life and have that big account. So even if you don't need the money, you may be taking it out of your RSP for a tax planning play, not an income play. It's a tax planning play. So make sure you talk to your financial planner. It's very important. A lot of you think, I have a defined benefit plan. I don't need a plan. Like, I'm just going to live off that. A lot of you are paying a lot of money to Mr. Taxman, CRA, because you're not doing the proper planning along the way. So make sure if you have a defined benefit plan and other registered accounts, it's really important to plan around those other registered accounts on when and how much you draw out of there. The fifth finding is that men and women approach finances in retirement very differently. So retired women report higher levels of financial worry and are more risk averse than retired men. As a result, men are more apt than women to spend consistently throughout retirement. And I'll say this, we have more single women hire our firm to do a plan for them than single men. And I think it cuts right down to this data right here. If you feel like you're in a position where I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing here, how to enter retirement, how to draw down, you need to seek help. There's no shame in seeking help. In fact, you should seek help. And the people that don't typically do it wrong. So if you say, Jim next door to me is doing it on his own, he's figured it out, but I can't. Well, guess what? If you go to a professional and get a proper plan mapped out, I can guarantee you that your plan will be better than Jim's next door because he's maybe too prideful, too confident. He's not getting the support. I think everyone should have some sort of professional support as they enter into retirement. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of you are blind to it. You avoid it, you don't want to look at it, but it's costing you thousands of dollars. So again, no matter what your situation is here, I would say if you're on a scale of 1 to 10, if you're a 1 or a 10, I think you need to go get some help as you enter into retirement. Again, a lot of you go from collecting one paycheck to many paychecks. Pension, RSP, TFSA, non-reg, CPP, OAS, and possibly many more. All that funnels down. How much income from each source, how much tax is withheld, how much tax are you going to pay, how do you level off your tax? There's a lot of moving parts in retirement. The sixth finding they have here, and the final one I'll cover off in this video here before I jump into our software, is more recent retirees are less optimistic. And I see this all the time. Again, it goes into that transition, the psychological transition into retirement. So if you're getting close to retirement and you're not too optimistic, you're not too sure, like, oh, I don't know if I can do this or not. Again, we have a lot of people that hire our firm to kind of map that out for them. Say, yeah, you're good to go. Here's where your income's going to come from. Here's how to do it efficiently. Government benefits, how to draw down, how to do your bridge benefit, whatever situation you're in. And that'll bring more optimism to retirement, right? It's like anything you do. If you're going to go start playing golf and you just go out there to the driving range and start swinging, and you don't have any guidance on like how to change your swing and how to hit it differently, you're going to struggle for a very long time and you may never figure it out. Same thing with retirement. If you get a professional beside you and say, hey, you need to tweak this, do this a little bit differently, it's going to get you on track. It's going to give you those tips that you need to make sure that you're moving forward into retirement in the right position. And I do find a lot of you resist getting help. And the reality is you're working longer than you need to. And all of you want to retire as soon as possible, yet no one wants to kind of get the help to see, can I actually retire? Could I retire yesterday? Get that help. Jumping into our software here, I want to cover off a couple key issues that a lot of you do wrong as you enter retirement. The first one is spending cash in the first few years of retirement. So here's Dave and Ruth YouTube. And you can see here, they have a few different assets. They have a non-registered with about 30,000. They have some TFSA money and they have some RRSPs. And so what they've done here, you can see they're withdrawing all their cash, their non-registered account, and then they're drawing substantially out of their TFSAs, but they're not touching their RSPs for the first few years. And a lot of you take this strategy. And you can see here, total tax bill the first 2 years, they paid zero. And a lot of you think, great, I'm paying zero tax, like I am winning. CRA is losing, I'm winning, I'm not paying them anything. The reality is, if I map this out again and again with different options and scenarios and how it works, every single time you will end up paying more tax to CRA by a strategy like this. You never want a zero tax year in retirement unless every year is zero tax year. If you're a very low income earner and every year is zero, totally different. But for most of you watching this video, you're going to have some taxable income down the road. And you're going to have to pay some tax. And you can see in this scenario, first couple of years are really low. 2 years after that, because again, mainly TFSA, still very low, and then it jumps way up. In fact, they have a year here where, hey, we need a new car. Oh, we've depleted our TFSA accounts, our non-registered accounts. That car purchase is going to have to come out of our RSP account, which drives up that tax rate. So again, this is one really big mistake we see a lot of people make in retirement, of trying to have zero taxes paid early in retirement, and it will be very costly to you. So again, make sure you map this out with your planner to see if you're doing this strategy, how does it map out long term, and is it viable for you? I assume it's not, based on the hundreds of times that I've mapped it out in different scenarios. The second big mistake people make is that they put a plan together and they say, okay, I can spend X amount of money. And again, I haven't done any CPP timing here, RSP meltdown. I haven't done like the internal tax planning here, but from a high level starting point, we'll say, okay, well, this client has about $74,000 a year. But what happens if they come back and say, you know what, Adam, I only need $60,000 a year. So let's copy that down until age 90 for them. So to life expectancy. Now, if I run this, we're going to see, okay, you could have had this much, but you only need this much, meaning there's quite a gap, $15,000 a year adjusted for inflation. There's going to be a lot of assets left at the end of the day. And if we scroll down, you can actually see their total assets are about 1.49 million. So $1.5 million at age 95. And a lot of you make this mistake in that you might, be in a great position where you've actually built out more than you need and you're not going to spend it all. So how are you going to use it? Are you going to leave $1.5 million at death to kids, charity, whoever you're leaving that money to? What happens is a lot of you will map it out like this. And a lot of you say, well, Adam, I'm not going to spend all my TFSA early. Okay, well, in this scenario, because they're not spending as much, they do spend it early, but they start building it back up later. And you can see at end of life, they've actually built up, a large $1.1 million TFSA. So this looks good on the surface. But you see, they still have about a $350,000 to $400,000 RSP, depending on when they pass away there. And so if you think about it, the second death of you and your spouse, or if you're single, on your death, half that money, roughly half that money, is going to go to the tax man. So it's really bad tax planning. So again, figure out how to draw down that RSP. And if you're going to have excess money and you have kids or someone to pass that money to, make sure you look at doing it earlier in life than later. Maybe you can afford to give them a little bit of money for down payment for a house. Again, getting your kids set up nowadays in our world, the cost of everything is substantial. So if you can help them out early, look at that. And in our next video that we're going to have on this channel in a few days, we're going to do a deep dive into this. How do you kind of draw down money properly? How do you create efficiency within a plan to make sure that you're paying less money to CRA?